We're here today with Lee Burns, the author of Freedom for Joe. Lee, thanks so much for taking the time to do this today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for setting that up.
No problem. You ready to get started?
Yeah.
All right. What is Freedom for Joe about?
Well, the story is about a football player at a professional quarterback on like a top team. Somebody like at a very high level, like today would be kind of a Tom Brady kind of thing. It's probably not as nice. Well, maybe he is a nice guy like Tom Brady, but he's going through some bad things. His father passed about a year ago, and he's struggling to understand that and deal with the pain and the loss of that, especially with the way that it happened. He's got a nice relationship with his mother. They're close, but his mother has found a way through this with her church. She's found strength there, which is great for her, but that didn't really work for Joe, isn't working for Joe. So he's kind of running from this pain and confusion. I would say in the darker side of what is available to someone at a celebrity level. And really, I mean, that's kind of the setup, the start of it. And then what it's really about overall is Joe trying to come to terms with that, trying to find peace and healing and understanding. He's a really passionate guy, and he's trying to figure out life and understand God and himself, etc. And so I'd say it's about him trying to figure those things out in what turns out to be a very unusual setting, with some unusual and entertaining characters.
I gotcha. All right. Well, what inspired you to write this story?
My own search and struggle for some of the answers that Joe is trying to figure out. I grew up in a very strict religious environment that wouldn't allow for us to go to movies, to watch television, to participate in school sports, to wear shorts, to dance, to live life. There's a lot added to that. I mean, there was a lot of restrictions placed on us. And as far as an understanding of God or yourself, I mean, I could sum it up by saying anything good that happened in your life, God did it. Anything bad that happened in your life, you did it. And so it kind of devalues the worth of the individual. And then as far as constantly telling someone they have to withhold themselves, you're not supposed to have this, not supposed to do this, I use the analogy being from Texas that what that creates is like if you're on a thoroughbred and you've got the reins and you're holding back, as hard as you can, for years and years, whenever those reins break, that horse is going to run for everything that they're worth. And that's what I did. I went to the opposite end of the spectrum with alcohol and drugs, etc. And really turned into kind of a dark individual, even though I wasn't really that way on the inside. I was just trying to figure it out. And then my son was born, and that blew my mind when he showed up. I just instantly had this overwhelming love for him that was totally selfless. Every parent can understand that, but it's still shocking when it happens, or it was for me. And then I wanted to turn my life around. I wanted to be a better person. And I wanted to find myself, and I wanted to try and understand spirituality, God, etc. And because I couldn't understand how I could have this kind of love without restrictions that I was told the Supreme Being had, the restrictions the Supreme Being was supposed to have on me. And that didn't make sense to me, because I didn't feel that way about my son. So it just spawned this search through a lot of religions, a lot of spiritual texts, a lot of different practices, and I found a lot of beauty in all of them. And I found a lot of similarities, definitely differences, but similarities at some core values and some core reach for an understanding of a connection to the divine. And so that really was the inspiration for it, that journey. And then I wanted to kind of share pieces of that journey, because when I talked with people, they were very interested in that. It seemed like something that we're all searching for. So Freedom for Joe, the story, was kind of an expression of that, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. Sounded like quite a journey.
Yeah, ongoing.
Is there a higher spiritual message within your story? And if so, what in your life was part of this aspect of the story?
It's probably just what I just said. Are there higher levels? Yeah, but it's not. Everything I've just said, I'm talking about spirituality, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want people to think that this is a, quote, spiritual book, because I don't think it is. People who've read either the novel or the script, one of the things that they've loved about it is that it's just a really entertaining story. And if you want to approach it that way, you'll enjoy it that way, or at least that's what I've heard. However, there are spiritual depths that are there, that are layered into the story, that are part of the journey that Joe is experiencing. One of the really cool things I've heard from people a number of times is, I want to read it again. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like there's more to be gotten out of it. And I think that speaks to the layers that are in the story. So higher spiritual message, there's not some truth that I'm trying to bang over people's heads. I'm not trying to preach to anybody. Is there concepts being explored? Yeah, but they're not in your face. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. What do you think readers will most relate to about Joe or any other pertinent characters in the book?
Well, that has been really cool. What I've heard from people is that they relate to, or different people relate to or identify with different characters, but they say that all of the characters seem like real people to them. And that's awesome, because that's one of the things you definitely want to create as a storyteller. You want people to be able to understand and identify and feel, like one person said to me recently, I felt like if I was in the shoes of any of the characters, I could see myself doing the same thing. So then that you've captured real life in that way. I would say the overall theme that I've heard of like what people are identifying with the most is Joe and his journey. That journey and what he's trying to understand and deal with in terms of questioning life and himself, etc., is something that we all do. So that has been cool, and the conversations that have come from people having read the book are pretty cool.
I gotcha. Cool. Are there truths in Freedom for Joe which you feel will transform the reader and how they view life and spirituality?
That I have no idea. That would be. That's not my place to say. Again, I'm not trying to preach to anybody. If somebody gets something like that out of it, awesome. If somebody just enjoys the story and thinks it's it was pleasurable to read, it kept their attention, awesome. That's the artist makes the art, the audience experiences it. So that's up to the audience. I can't speak to that.
That makes sense. Okay. So who is Joe?
the answer immediately comes to mind, but okay. So I just said all this stuff about not preaching, and it's not preaching, but Joe is us. Joe is all of us. So I mean, that was the point. That's even the name, Joe. Your average Joe, Joe Blow, Joe next door. It's yeah, you're Joe, I'm Joe, everyone's Joe.
Cool. Well, without giving too much away, what is his conflict and why freedom?
I would say his major conflict, I mean, there's some surface things, but at the core inside, the conflict is really, I would say, mostly about what, his mom has this, has her religion, and that solution works for her, right? And that's great, but it doesn't work for Joe, and I think his main conflict is trying to find what works for him, and not just taking what is someone else's truth and saying, well, that must be the truth then, and I have to operate off of that, because it forces him into a box that he doesn't fit in. And his conflict then becomes trying to get away from, I would say, supposed tos. Mm-hmm. How he's supposed to be for his team, his image in society, religious teachings, on whatever level, that even if, let's say, he might actually want to be that way, well, there's a difference between choosing to be that way and being that way because you're supposed to be that way, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that is Joe's conflict, trying to figure that out and make his way through that. And freedom, because to become free of that and to be willing to embrace your own path, and walk that to me is at least the first step to freedom, if not freedom itself.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. You originally wrote Freedom for Joe as a movie script. Why did you decide to make it into a novel as well?
Lack of patience. That's actually the answer. When you're making a movie, you need a lot of other people to agree with you to get the movie made. Agree with you that it's a great movie, that it deserves to be made, that it should be made, that it's a great story, etc. And then be willing to fight the battle of any film of putting it together and making it happen. Now, I have to believe that more than anyone, or it will never happen. But then I have to surround myself with people who also believe that and have ability and skills that I don't have in certain areas. And so we've come close to making it into the movie a number of times. We're still working to make it into a movie, and will make it into a movie, and expecting to do so this year. But I've come close a number of times in the past, and sometimes when I get close, I realize that some of the people on board they're not trying to make the movie that I want to make. They're trying to take it in another direction, make it into some other idea. And it's important to me as an artist, whether I'm right or wrong, that it at least says what I want it to say. And so that journey is a journey of persistence and continuing, but it's also frustrating at times, because there are wonderful fans and friends and people who have been following the story on social media, on news outlets, and just personally for many years, and really want to see this story, want to experience this story, and I really want to share it. So writing it as a novel takes it out of other people's hands, and puts it in mine, and and I can just share the story now instead of having to wait and get a bunch of people to agree with me. The audiences have already agreed. They want it. It's just getting everyone else to agree. So let's bypass them. Let me get the story out. So that would be the main reason. Also, it was fun to kind of explore it at a deeper level in a novel.
I gotcha. I have some questions here from a writing teacher. She wants to know, what was the most challenging part of the novel to write, and how did you deal with writer's block?
The most challenging part is what I just talked about, and understanding how to write a novel as opposed to a script. After that, nothing was really challenging about writing the novel except, making yourself sit down and do it every day. But even that wasn't really that hard because I love this story. But that is because I wrote the script and I've rewritten it over 50 times, and there has been, so many production meetings and discussions of the story with my fellow producers. We've done readings with actors, so I know this story so intimately. By the time I sit down to write it as a novel, I just needed to understand how to tell the story in that language as opposed to script. Now, when I first wrote the script, I definitely dealt with difficult areas and writer's block, and the two kind of, I think, go hand in hand. Specifically on Freedom for Joe, there were some physical things that he experiences that I didn't have knowledge of. And so when I reached that area, I couldn't figure out what to write next or how to write. So I had to go do research. So I did a lot of going and asking questions, making phone calls on a medical side to understand what someone goes through when their body's going through certain things. And then also as an actor, I just made my body that way for like an entire weekend, 3 days maybe. And then I knew it when I had it, when I understood it. And from there it was easy to write. From working with a lot of writers now as a producer, I can say that what I see, what I ran into initially, what I run into now, and what I see them running into, it's really a question of, if they're editing themselves in their head ahead of time, and that can cause writer's block. Just get it out on the page, and you don't have to deal with that as much.
I gotcha. Okay. How did you deal with revising and editing from a motivational aspect?
Well, that's great. That feeds into what I was just talking about. The rewrite process, like I said, 50 times on the script. That's not unusual for something that, take As Good as It Gets, that won the Academy Award. It was rewritten around 50 times. So initially the rewriting process, I hated it. But I love it now, and the biggest shift is only one thing. It's in my attitude about it. And my attitude about it now, instead of, oh my gosh, I was so clever as a writer to have written that particular line, or oh, I really love this scene. Instead, I'm only interested in how good can it be. And what I mean by that is, how far can it reach? How true to life can it be? How true to the characters can it be? So I'm always interested in taking another look, and revisiting again, finding, is there any area where my attention as an audience member goes out of the story? And if so, well, there's a weak point somewhere around there. So I want to find that. I want to figure out, and by a weak point, all it is that there's somewhere that it's not true. Something in the story is a lie. A character's action, the scene that happens next, it boils down to, these people would not actually do or say that, or wouldn't find themselves in that position, whatever that is. So I love finding those things and making it more real. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. How long did the process of changing the script to prose take?
Script to novel was, I think, 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
Well, yeah, but again, I've lived with this story for so long, so I know it intimately. I just, yeah, and anything I do, I'm 150% in. So, it was 3.5 weeks of doing almost nothing else, except playing golf, of course.
That's a whole nother interview.
Yeah.
What do you love about the writing process, and what's irritating?
I love everything about the writing process. I think the difference for me now, maybe I didn't initially, was because I was trying to meet someone else's idea of what I thought it was supposed to be or should be, or, trying to live up to correct grammar, correct storytelling, correct, all this stuff. I don't worry about that anymore, and I'm into. As a writer, you're getting to create a whole world of characters, and you're kind of playing make believe, making it up, and yet you get to share it with other people. We all did it as kids. Hey, let's play pretend. So you get to play pretend, and then explore what you pretended or what you created. And I think that is. I think that is a blast. If there's one thing that's irritating, the only irritating thing is waiting for a response. Meaning, as an artist, you want to create an effect on people. You want to move them in some way. You want to make them laugh. You want to entertain them, scare them. Whatever it is. It depends on the movie you're watching, the book you're reading. As an audience, you want to be affected in some way, and the artist wants to create an effect. I think that's one of the reasons as an actor I love to do stage, or other actors love to do stage. You get an immediate response. You feel it as you're living that character. You feel what the audience is experiencing. And as a writer, you have to wait and wait and wait to find out how you've affected someone. So I find that irritating. I'm sure my wife finds that irritating too, because I constantly go to her with what I'm writing and go, hey, read this. So that would be the answer to those two.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Well, do you have a specific writing style?
I don't know. I'm just going for real, true, things that interest me, and hoping that it interests other people. But I'm not trying to. I don't even know what a writing style is, really, I guess. I can recognize that Quentin Tarantino's storytelling is different than Steven Spielberg's storytelling. I don't know how you would classify those as styles. It's just the stories that Quentin likes to tell and the stories that Steven likes to tell, and I have the stories that I like to tell. And I'm just, the main thing I'm going for is real, true to the story, true to the characters in the story.
I gotcha, okay. Well, who designed your cover?
My son designed my cover. He's a pretty talented artist in areas that I suck in, like drawing and graphic design and that kind of stuff. So I was trying to come up with something to. I was going to hire this copy editor or cover design editor, and so I was coming up with some images. And I was trying to put them together in Photoshop, and I asked my son, I'd been messing around with 20 minutes, couldn't get it to do anything I wanted, and I asked him to look at it, and he did it in like 30 seconds and made it better than what I was thinking of. So it was really cool to create it with him, to collaborate with him. And then my wife and I were out for dinner, and I came home one night, and we came home, and I came in the bedroom, and he was like, Dad, come here. Took me to the computer to show me what he had created, and I was like, oh man, that's right on. So we tweaked from that and came up with the final cover.
Well, it's a great cover.
Thanks.
You guys did a great job.
Thank you. And I got to thank the fans on Facebook as well, because there was a lot of feedback as we were working through that process, and that really helped to kind of hone in what response and what people were thinking, what they were getting. Because again, as an artist, I knew what I wanted it to communicate, and then the surveys really helped find out, is it communicating that, or does it need to be tweaked? And I think everyone's really happy with what it's turned out to be in the end.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
How do you want this story to affect people's lives?
Well, that's a doozy, isn't it?
Save the best for last.
Yeah. How do I want it to affect people's lives? I hope it entertains them. I hope it touches them. I hope it... I mean, it's so difficult to say because everyone's going to have their own experience of it, but you're asking what do I want. I just hope that you know, Warner Brothers, the studio, was initially founded on the 3 E's: to entertain, educate, and enlighten. And my company, Awareness Entertainment, my production company, also has that as part of our mission statement. So, you know, I would hope that those things occur. I hope that they are entertained. I hope that they enjoy the journey of Joe. I hope they maybe find some that they find something to identify with there, and are touched in a positive way. I mean, what I'm hearing from readers is what I hope continues, I guess, because every conversation I'm having, people are wanting to explore deeper into the layers of the book, and all the different stories that are going on, and kind of some of the hidden stuff. And then our conversations are turning into what is our personal relationship with the spirituality, with divine. How do we see ourselves in this world that we live in? You know, that's cool because it's on a surface level they're enjoying just the story and the characters and finding it interesting. And you know, I've had so many people tell me, I think what every writer wants to hear, I can't put it down. So I hope that all these things continue, you know, and then I hope they tell their friends about it.
That would be ideal.
That would be pretty great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to answer all of these so truthfully today. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy it.
Well, I enjoyed it too.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy reading.